What we're about to break down here isn't just some clever communication tactic. No, this is a masterclass in psychological strategy. It's the invisible system that can make even the sharpest, most competent person start to question their own reality. This is the architecture of what we call manufactured insecurity.
Just let that one sink in for a second. This isn't about obvious insults or big, loud attacks. This is about a kind of neurological corrosion. It's about planting a seed of doubt that's so potent, you begin to dismantle your own confidence from the inside out. And that quote, that's the core principle of this entire system.
So here's our game plan. We're going to pull back the curtain on this system piece by piece. We'll start with how it feels, then we'll dissect its mechanics, understand exactly why it's so incredibly powerful, and finally, and this is the important part, we'll build the countermeasures to reclaim your cognitive sovereignty.
Let's start with what this actually feels like. That internal disorientation that you've probably felt but maybe couldn't quite put a name to. This is that moment where the ground just shifts right under your feet, even when everything on the surface seems perfectly fine.
This is what we call the sudden wobble. Think about it. You've just nailed a big project. You're feeling confident, you're in your element. Then a mentor, or maybe a colleague you really respect, pulls you aside and says, "Hey, that was great, but you came off a little intense." And bam. Just like that, the pride is gone. It's replaced by this spike of anxiety. You start replaying every single word. This is the beginning of a kind of moral atrophy, where you actually start apologizing for your own competence. See, that helpful advice, it wasn't designed to help you improve. It was designed to unanchor you. And here's what's actually happening inside your brain. We can give it a name, induced perceptual drift. This right here is the critical moment where control begins to shift away from you. Your brain, which is fundamentally wired for social connection, starts to value the shifting, vague opinion of one person over the hard, factual evidence of your own success. Suddenly, you're not operating from your own baseline anymore. You're operating from theirs.
And this slide just perfectly illustrates the dangerous trade-off you're being pushed to make. On one side, you've got the concrete data, the projects you finished, the targets you've hit. And on the other, you have this moving target of someone else's approval. The moment you fall into that explanation trap, trying to justify yourself or prove you're not too intense, you've already agreed to play their game. A game where the rules are defined entirely by their subjective feelings.
So how does this process of cognitive capture actually work? We're shifting now from the feeling to the mechanics of it all. Because this isn't random. It's a deliberately engineered system, a trap with 4 distinct interlocking stages that are designed to seize control of your perception.
We call it the Invalidation-Dependency Loop, and it's designed to be this seamless, self-reinforcing cycle that takes a person from being a confident agent to a captured petitioner, constantly just seeking an approval they will never ever consistently receive. It starts small, but it builds momentum until the target's entire reality is filtered through the influencer.
The entry point is stage 1, the Micro-Invalidation Strike. The influencer identifies something you pride yourself on. Maybe it's your logic, your creativity, your precision. They don't attack it directly. No, they use something called concerned framing. They'll say something like, "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Or, "You seem a bit overwhelmed lately." They're not making a statement. They're launching a probe, just waiting to see if you'll wobble. They are literally mapping your self-doubt.
Now, once they find a vulnerability, we move into stage 2. The influencer stops giving you a steady signal. One day, they are your biggest fan, incredibly supportive. The next, they're distant, critical. This inconsistency is neurologically devastating. It creates this desperate scramble in your brain. You get a flood of the stress hormone cortisol when they're cold, and your brain gets primed for a dopamine hit of approval when they're warm. You become addicted to regaining that connection, just like a gambler pulling the lever on a slot machine.
And this leads us straight into stage 3, compulsive overfunctioning. Your own drive for excellence is now turned against you. You start working harder, not for the results, but for their approval. You soften your opinions to line up with theirs. You stop celebrating your own wins because you don't want to trigger their concern. You're desperately trying to earn a sense of safety that is being intentionally withheld to keep you right in this state of compliant anxiety.
And this is where the trap closes, the dependency anchor. At this point, the influencer has successfully established a mental monopoly. You literally no longer trust your own perception. You look to them to tell you how you're doing, to validate your reality. The power balance has completely shifted. You are now a petitioner, operating inside a conditional reality that they control entirely.
Okay, so we've seen how the system is built, but Why is it so lethally effective, even on sharp, high-performing people? Well, the answer isn't found in logic. It's buried deep in our biological wiring.
I mean, this is the key question, isn't it? You'd think a confident, successful person would just shrug off these little comments. But the system exploits a fundamental vulnerability that every single one of us shares. It bypasses our rational mind and it targets something much deeper, something ancient.
The answer lies in something called Sociometer Theory, and it's backed up by modern neuroscience. Our self-esteem isn't just about how we feel about ourselves in a vacuum. It's an internal gauge, a survival tool that is constantly monitoring our level of social acceptance. Research on social pain shows that our brains process social rejection in the very same regions that process physical pain. So to our primitive brain, being devalued or rejected by our tribe feels like a threat that's equivalent to a physical injury. It feels lethal. And this is the leverage point. The insecurity architect isn't just giving you their opinion, they are activating your brain's ancient threat detection system, your status radar. They are exploiting this pre-built logic. They skillfully inflate the perceived cost of disagreeing with them, while at the same time, they systematically erode your confidence to stand on your own. It just starts to feel easier to comply than to risk disconnection, which, remember, your brain is registering as a genuine survival threat. All right, we have thoroughly analyzed the trap. Now, let's build the escape plan. And look, this isn't about hope or positive thinking. This is a clear, tactical playbook for neutralizing the entire system and reclaiming your own cognitive baseline. Here they are, 3 powerful countermeasures. And these are not passive defenses. They are active, strategic moves. They are the direct antidote to that invalidation-dependency loop we talked about. They're designed to restore your focus and return the locus of control back to where it belongs, with you.
Step 1 is all about creating resistance. The second you feel that hot, defensive need to explain yourself, you must pause. This is an act of analytical calibration. You ask yourself that critical question. Independent of their opinion, what does the data say? You are intentionally shifting from an emotional reaction to a logical assessment. Their perception becomes just one data point, not the entire reality. This starves the addiction to their approval.
And that question right there is the perfect bridge to our next incredibly powerful tool. Because once you start thinking in terms of data, you naturally start looking for specifics.
This brings us to the evidence mandate. The idea here is to counter their vagueness by demanding precision. When they say you were too aggressive, you calmly ask, "I appreciate the feedback. So I can improve. Can you point to a specific metric I missed? Or maybe a specific part of the presentation that was a problem? I just want to make sure I understand if this is based on a key performance indicator or if it's more of a feeling you're having." See what you're doing? You're demanding the math. And this immediately exposes whether their critique is a legitimate observation or just a seed of anxiety they're trying to plant.
And finally, you have to build your own unbreakable case. Actively document your wins. Keep a file, a brag file if you want, of your successes, positive feedback, projects you've crushed. This isn't for anyone else, it's for you. It acts as a cognitive firewall. It is tangible proof that your value and your status are not gifts that can be granted or taken away by some external party. When their narrative of your supposed flaws clashes with your documented reality, their narrative just collapses.
Let's pull this all together with one final powerful idea. We've spent this whole time analyzing the system used to make you doubt yourself. Now it's time to flip the script entirely.
This is the ultimate takeaway. The person who can control your self-image is the person who can control your future. True power isn't about being immune to criticism, it's about being sovereign over your own reality. The next time you feel that sudden wobble, remember this. The game isn't about proving yourself to them. It's about understanding the game they're playing with you. Stop explaining, start auditing.